And you mentioned fake it till you make it. It's the most disempowered way in which you can show up into the world. Because if you're showing up in a way where you're playing pretend, you're standing on shaky ground.
Yeah.
But what happened in that shift is I found solid ground that I could be sure of, where I knew these things are true about me. But previously I was standing on a ground of, hey, pretend that you're some businesswoman. I'm not. And I'm just, I've learned this about myself. I'm not good at pretending. I'm horrible at it. But truth is solid. And I found that solid ground of truth to stand on. And this version of confident, powerful Katie showed up, and I didn't know that existed within me. And it was right there.
What's up, everybody? Sam Taggart here with the D2D Podcast. It's been a minute since I've been the host, and I'm so just grateful for every listener out there that's, just a diehard. I've had many people this summer, messaging me being like, man, your podcast saved me. I was about to quit or whatever. And whether you're a business owner or a brand new rep, hopefully get a lot of value out of these. And we love to see you guys involved in any of our events, like our summits, our boot camps, or even just Door-to-Door coming up in January. But I have a really special guest. And I was privileged to be on her podcast, and we just clicked. And I was like, man, you're a vibe. And before I introduce Katie, I just want to invite everybody listening to these podcasts to hit the subscribe button so that you get notified when new episodes come out. And then number two, share it with somebody. I think a lot of people out there, selfishly are like, look at me, I'm competitive advantage because I'm learning all these cool tips and tricks and knowledge and stuff like that. But I believe in abundance versus scarcity. So there may be a rep on your team, there may be a business owner, partner, friend, or whatever that needs this. And so if you get value out of these, we love for you guys to share these and help others. Obviously this is free, and the way that we get our fulfillment is just more and more people this gets to be able to reach. So without further ado, bringing on Miss Katie Richardson, who has sold her business and had a massive, massive exodus with multi-million-dollar international company and distribution of over 2,000 stores. And she has a background in design. She was just this traditional, like, hey, I'm, nothing crazy, but was able to build her business into 26 different countries. And she was also featured on Ellen DeGeneres and the Today Show and Rachel Ray. And she's also been featured in the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine, and built an executive coaching business that has helped entrepreneurs understand the framework. We call it the unframework of the framework, right? And she has a creative background. It is design. But I think the part that I love about Katie is she just has this authentic, positive, bubbly personality to her. And anybody that's had a multi-million-dollar acquisition and coached companies and has been successful as she has been as a female entrepreneur, I think goes through their own challenges. And you think about from, relationship and partner dynamic with the spouse to, kids to, all the things that come with entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And so in today's podcast, we're going to dive in a little bit, the authentic side of this, running a business. And then I'm going to be authentic and have her help show us how coaching looks like on a live podcast. And so if you're a business owner or you're somebody looking to just see an authentic version of just how we go work through, me being a coach, her being a coach, helping each other, I think it'll show you maybe what you might need to unlock in your own, business or your own sales skills or wherever you're at, because we get in our own way. And individually, when we're trying to solve our own problems without outside perspective, that's where sometimes you could destroy your life, destroy your business, destroy your relationship because you're down this path to destruction. And there's guides out there that are like, hold on, we've been there. And what's cool about Katie is she's helped many companies now plan for future exits. She's helped many companies avoid some crazy problems, and hence why she's been on Entrepreneur Magazine and the Today Show. Like, not many people get to that height and stage without a skill set and track record like Katie. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Miss Richardson.
Sam Taggart, that was quite the intro. I'm super honored to be here. Thank you for everything that you've shared. And I'm super excited to talk to our D2D audience.
Yeah. So tell me, just so, and the listeners, just so they have a little context, when somebody says I have 26 countries, distribution, blah, blah, and we're sitting here on a D2D podcast, it's not like your background technically was knocking homeowners' doors, but kind of tell me the door-to-door experience you have had, though, building a business to that size, in the sense of what doors did you have to knock, though, to get to that size?
So many doors. You know, what fascinates me about you and everybody in your world who's knocking doors, every time you knock on a door, you have no idea who's going to open that door, right? You have no idea what the circumstance and situation is going to be. You maybe have some sense for kind of what their current, solar situation is or their HVAC, but there's so much unknown. And when you have the courage, or I would even say audacity, to continually step into the unknown again and again and again, you start to learn the underlying principles that will help you not only achieve personal success, but help other people get what they already want. And I feel like with my physical products company, that's what we were very good at, is actually identifying the core issue or the core problem, and then presenting them with a solution that they already desired. Maybe they just didn't even know about it, right? And so when you understand people's real pain, and then you have a solution that genuinely solves the problem of that pain, then selling becomes a lot easier, and it's fairly effortless, because instead of you chasing after them, they're coming after you. And so on that 8+ year journey of developing a global business, I developed that skill set of really understanding somebody's needs and then being able to show them the solution in a way that has them coming to it. So you mentioned all of the press and PR publications that we've been in and the media. What people are really surprised to learn is that those opportunities came to us, and it was intentional. It was design, and it was about understanding the value that we were creating, understanding how to infuse those values into all of the touch points. And so when people would experience some sort of an interaction, whether it's a distributor or a manufacturer or even a customer. I had a customer who somebody gifted her our core product. She took it out of a box and said, "I didn't know you. I'd never heard your story. And yet I pulled that product out of the box and it felt like I could feel your soul." And I was thinking, oh, good. I designed it into that. And so I'm glad you experienced that. When you're knocking doors, when you're selling products, it's about solving problems and adding real value to people. And if you can really understand how to do that, then you just have to get out of people's way.
100%. So what are some key things that you did to help ensure that you solved their problem and added real value? And I like the extra word you put in there, because a lot of people just say add value, but it's like so many people have an assumption of they're adding value versus actual value. And so what do you do to kind of audit yourself and or ensure that you're doing those two things?
When we're in sales, we walk up to that door or we schedule the meeting and we're ready with all of our talking points. What people miss is you have to listen first, and you need to know that person who's standing in front of you. They're not exactly like everybody else you've ever talked to. But we think listening is kind of losing the control or influence over the conversation. It's the exact opposite, Sam. We get listened to hardly ever in our life. So when you show up actually curious about the other person and genuinely inquiring because you want to understand more, people immediately sense something different about you, because most people are just piping up to be heard and understood, and they're not seeking to understand. So the first thing I would say is, if you're in sales, if you can develop this ability to actually listen, not pretend to be listening, but actually listen to somebody, their walls start to come down. Their true concerns and questions or fears start to come out. And once you have that truth, then from that place of truth, you can problem solve with them. But too often we're just ready with all of our talking points and all of the kind of features of our product, and nobody cares. What they care about is something that they hold close to the chest, and they don't just share that with everybody. But if you ask, it doesn't take too many questions, especially if you're actually interested. It doesn't take long. And what I started to experience is I'll be in sales conversations and people will start telling me very personal things very quickly. And they'll say, it's funny, I don't know why I'm telling you this. And then they'll tell me something really personal, which is actually important information and why it might make sense for them to do business with me.
Yeah, I love that.
And you gotta listen. It's a superpower if you can, and anybody can learn it. Anybody can develop it.
I would say it's probably the hardest thing it's an emotional thing for a sales guy. They're like, here's my script. I hope I get it out right. I hope they don't reject me. I hope I don't get kicked off the porch. I hope that they just say yes. And you're going through all this, like the spotlight almost, you're putting on yourself way too much in that scenario because you're so concerned about your outcome, your feelings, your result, like instead of saying, I'm so just concerned genuinely about the well-being of whoever my prospect is. I just got off a sales call this morning, and it was a business owner out in Massachusetts that just started in January. And I was live role playing with my sales team. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to call through this list. And third person answered, and they downloaded like some free playbook. Like there weren't like a demo request. There was no like preset. They had no idea. And I said my name was Steve just to prove a point. I'm like, I'm not even going to call as Sam because maybe he'll recognize the name. So I said, hey, this is Steve. And, then we assessed the call, and we booked the demo and with him and his partner for later today. And I was like, what did you guys notice? And every single one of them, hands down, were like, wow, you just like flowed with a conversation with him. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they were like, well, it wasn't like you asked all the discovery questions, but not in any order that you've told us to ask. But you did ask them all. And I said, well, I asked them when it made sense to ask them because we had a conversation. And I said, and then they said, well, you made it feel like it wasn't transactional. I said, because it wasn't. I genuinely said, our business is to help you scale. Our business is to help you make way more money. Our business is to figure out if we're a good fit. And there's programs that might be of benefit from you. Even if there isn't, I hope even on this conversation, I can give you some value. And here's some honest feedback. And I gave them some free advice. And I was like, what are you doing with this? And they're like, oh, we've been doing this completely wrong. And I said, yeah, that's why I'm having this training conversation right now. Like,
I love this. The strangest thing happened in that conversation. You actually sounded like you cared. How did you do that? And what was the answer? Oh,
I actually care.
Do care about
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I sold alarm systems, it's funny. Like most people are like, how'd you sell so many? I was the number one rep or whatever. And I'm like, because I pretended like I was a superhero and I was protecting everyone's home. And I was like, I took it upon myself. If anyone got broken into and they didn't have an alarm, that guilt is going to go on me. And so I can't walk away knowing I left you unprotected because I care so much about your family. I hope you care as much as I care about your family. You know what I mean? That is how I sold. So everybody's like, why are you so passionate? I'm like, I didn't grow up having a house key. I still don't even lock my door. Like I could care less. But I had the superhero complex of like, I better effing help these people. And I genuinely did care. So I think if
you figured out a way to access real, true, authentic caring. And that was the key.
So here's the hard part. And this is an interesting question that it's leading me to. When you start to buy in and believe and have that genuine care, where are some times as you grew in your business that you felt like, man, I was so caring and vulnerable and generous and I did care so much that maybe that you had yourself susceptible to get hurt or you ran into some challenge that you're like, what the freak? Like, I do care so much. Why am I getting so much resistance right now? Like whether it's from the universe or whether it's from a customer or a distributor, maybe tell us about an example of that.
The example you gave is you were caring on their behalf, and where we get lost in caring is being needy and desperate for self-preservation, self-protection, whether that is, your status or how people are viewing you. And so sometimes we can care with the intention of self-preservation. And that's where we get caught in that trap.
So did that happen to you?
Oh, totally. Totally. I actually have a really good example of that. We developed our product for 2 years in secret, because when you're going to patent and trademark something, you can't have previous sales and exposure of it. So it has to be, you have to file those papers before you show it publicly, which means you're paying legal bills for something that you haven't monetized yet. We were living on food storage. We were grinding wheat to make 4 loaves of bread a week. We believed in this product, and we were scrounging together whatever we could find to fund this and pay the attorneys, because we couldn't sell the product first. The very first trade show, so we got the paperwork filed. I took it to a trade show in New York. And like I said, we were out of money. I slept on the couch of a friend in Manhattan. I got to their place at like 1 a.m. I didn't know anybody who was sleeping in their apartment. They let me in. And then I go to this trade show and I'm talking to store buyers from Target, Nordstrom, Costco, Pottery Barn. And they're all curious and interested and asking all kinds of questions. But at the end of the day, I come home with 0 orders, like a giant goose egg. It was painful. And it was devastating personally, financially. It was like a moment where I had kind of put myself out there in a really big way, and it felt like the world gave me a big thumbs down. And, you know, I was disheartened. I was afraid, but my husband said something really profound to me in that moment. And he said, yeah, they said no, but they were asking questions. They were curious. And if we just answer those questions and take it back to them, they'll all buy. Sam, that was a huge bet. Like, we were out of money, and to continue to move forward just was like crazy town. But there was something in me that couldn't live with the future version of Katie, who gave up in that moment and got 3 to 5 years into the future and looked back and be like, dang it, I wish I could go back and have the courage to keep going. But I threw in the towel and I gave up. And I couldn't live with that. And I was like, I am going to keep going. I don't care how crazy people think I am. And so I did. I kept going, answered all those questions, took it back to the trade show. And what was so unexpected and caught me off guard in that moment was 2 things. Everyone started saying yes, and we were taking orders. But I was so terrified that they were going to find out I wasn't a real businesswoman. So even though what I was working towards for so many years was finally starting to happen, I internally wasn't ready for it. And I was ready to start self-sabotaging. It was really weird. And I was struggling to have conversations with people. I didn't even know how to get out the words. We accept Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Like, I would fumble over those words. My tongue would get all twisted up. And so I ended up pushing people to my husband or my best friend, who was my global sales director, who was just like bunking it with us in our hotel and was just doing me a favor. And so in that moment, I was about to start self-sabotaging because I wasn't ready for that level of success. But what happened in that moment is I made a shift that I think is really powerful. And I want to share it with the audience right now, which is, you know, I thought that I was tricking everybody into believing that I was some businesswoman who had experience in this and had a history of selling products. I thought I was tricking everybody. And that had me being really disempowered. And so as I was talking to people, I was actively hiding this about myself. Right? It was that game of self-preservation.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to know that I'm driving a crappy car and sleeping in a...
I couldn't actually be interested in you. I couldn't actually be curious about what's going on with your clients and your customers and help solve those problems, because so much of my energy and focus was on self-preservation, not getting caught and not getting trapped in my own, I don't know, game of pretend.
Yeah. Wow.
So you want to know how you switch that? This is what I did.
Wait, before you go on to that, if you're listening, I'm just going to challenge the listeners real quick on this. Like, check in for 2 seconds before she gives you solutions to this shit. Like, bring a reality check to, like, nobody's watching you as you listen to this. So that's why I'm like, you don't have to self-preserve and hide from yourself. You're listening to a podcast, probably in the gym, or you're driving to whatever. And I'm like, where are you doing that? So anyway, go on. I just wanted to like challenge the listeners for 2 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that are a part of your reality, whether that's your wife's pregnant with your first child and you're not making your commissions like you had thought and hoped you would at this point. And you're wondering, how am I going to pay for all this? And you need a new car, and she needs to go buy a new car seat and stroller. And so you have the weight of that real, raw reality on your shoulders as you're knocking the next door. And you're hoping and praying that you can achieve these goals and objectives that you personally have. But the problem is, when that's your focus and aim, you can't actually serve people. You can't actually listen to them. You can't actually be present with them. And you get in your own way. Yeah. 100%. So what's the solution? Well, in that moment, I'll tell you what happened in that moment, and it kind of exposes the solution. In that moment, my husband could see what I was doing. And he pulled me out of the booth and he just said, "Hey, where's Katie?" And I said, "What do you mean, where's Katie?" And I like gave him this fake smile. I'm like, "I'm good. Wildest dreams coming true." He was like, "No, you're pushing people off onto me and to Diana. And, normally you're really engaging with people. You're really excited to talk to them. And I'm not seeing that part of you right now." And that's where all of my fears came to the surface, Sam. And I just started crying. And, we've all had those moments where it's just, we've been pushing down our fear. We've been pushing down the struggle just to keep going. And in that moment, the truth came out. And the truth in that moment was, well, I'm terrified because what I've been working towards for the last 2+ years is finally happening. And what if I screw it all up? What if they find out I'm not a real businesswoman? What if they find out that my global headquarters is in the garage of our 3-bedroom starter home? And, what if I say something and I slip up that then causes them to not trust us as vendors, trust us to supply product to their store shelves? And I just was so terrified, right? I had failed 12 months prior, and it was finally working, but that failure felt it was just still right there, and it was haunting me. So as I expressed all of my fears and emotions with him, which by the way is part of the process, like, can you, in a safe environment, get out and express your fears? Because until that moment, they were subconscious, and I was playing this game of avoiding, but not consciously understanding what I was avoiding. So in that moment, he gave me a gift, and I was able to actually see what I was pushing down and what I was trying to hide from people. And as it came out, he listened, which is also part of the process, right? Actually listening and understanding. And he said, "But Katie, they're not expecting you to be something that you're not. They just want you to be Katie. So can you be Katie and ask them, do you want 25 or 50 tubs?" And what he did for me in that moment, if you can, and this is the key, if you can actually know who you are and no longer be looking for other people to validate that in you, affirm that in you, that is between you and God alone. If you know how to play that game, then the human fears that will arise when we're seeking approval from others that show up when you're knocking the door, those get settled and they no longer are showing up. And you have full focus, energy, and clarity to actually be interested in the person who's standing in front of you. That's how you do it.
Wow.
In that moment, he gave me that gift, right? I was reminded, oh, I'm Katie Richardson. I solve problems in a really profound way. I actually care about people. And I just need to have a conversation with this individual who's in front of me and actually find out what their problem is. And if I can really help them discover and define what their problem is, maybe I'm the solution, which also means maybe I'm not. And that's okay too. But can I help them clearly define what their problem is. And then if I am the solution, show them how to access that solution. And so that's what I did from that point forward. And within hours, Sam, I'm having a conversation with this man. He's asking me, he's firing all kinds of questions at me. And, I'm answering them, but then I very quickly am asking him more questions. Come to find out, he's the CEO of Carter's, like a really significant company in the baby business. And he said, I have to tell you, he's like, I'm very impressed that this is your first business. You're an incredible negotiator. And like, are you looking for investors? I would love to talk more about potentially investing in your company. Like, there's something really special here in the brand and the products. And I see something in you that I think is really incredible. Now, the Katie of just like 3 hours prior would not have been able to handle that. So what happened? What was the shift? What changed? And what's that change within you that, maybe you had a bad door and it didn't go your way, but can you collect yourself and ask yourself, who am I? Who do I want to be? To the point where you can kind of settle that between you and God and no longer be hiding these fears that you have and actually go solve problems for people.
Wow. Guys, if you're listening, like, fire on fire. Like, I think too many times we look at it and they're told fake it till you make it, right? Like some say, fake it till you make it. And I'm like, how about just be confident, but just be real and realize that some people enjoy feeling the energy of that authenticity. Some people really like he's just like, wow, like I would have never known, and wanted to help even more. He's like, let me be the gateway into Carter's, or let me be the gateway into Target, or like, I'll connect you to this person too. Like, they're willing to help you out more than just the big box business that sits down with them. And he's like, here we go again with some other corporate bureaucracy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, and it's like using that to your advantage, not to your disadvantage. And I think that the self-preservation concept, wow, like I've never, on any of the podcasts I've done, which is hundreds of them, had this thought of, and it's hard because for you and I, who have now made millions and, coached and seen all sorts of things, and I'm sure you've traveled the world and have cool shit, it's hard for us sometimes to go back to that you're sitting in your garage moment, you know what I mean? Where I would say 90% of people are still there, probably listening to this. You know what I mean? Like, most people never make it over this hump of like, wow, I'm financially free, or I'm in a place where I have confidence like I should when I walk into whatever scenario, and I'm not saying I have that. Like, I still get afraid of getting on stage sometimes, or going places and getting into demos. But like, there are a lot where I'm like, yeah, this is me, look at me, because I've built a track record of success. But like, the reality is, it's like, when I think back to my early days, when you're right, like, I didn't have thousands of dollars in my bank account. I didn't have everything figured out, which I still don't, but in my head, I see myself, because I have this natural need to be liked, just like everybody else. I have this natural need not to look bad, or, I want to show up. And what's funny is I even use that to motivate me in the selling scenario, because I don't want to be the guy on the numbers board at the bottom of the numbers board. And, sometimes I could even see salespeople going back to their wife being like, oh yeah, I'm crushing. It's like, the wife doesn't even know how to audit his sales numbers to see if he's actually selling and hitting his goals and his numbers. It's like, but she does see the bank account, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing. It's like, he wants to preserve his ego and his manlyhood to his wife. And it's like, hold on, she just wants you to be real, like, not lie to her. Like, I just see this showing up in so many scenarios where
when you're knocking doors, you have to have a level of confidence that most people don't have. And you mentioned fake it till you make it. It's the most disempowered way in which you can show up into the world. Because if you're showing up in a way where you're playing pretend, you're standing on shaky ground.
Yeah.
But what happened in that shift is I found solid ground that I could be sure of, where I knew these things are true about me. But previously I was standing on a ground of, hey, pretend that you're some businesswoman. I'm not. And I've learned this about myself. I'm not good at pretending. I'm horrible at it. But truth is solid. And I found that solid ground of truth to stand on. And this version of confident, powerful Katie showed up, and I didn't know that existed within me. And it was right there.
It's so, I think it's interesting. You've mentioned a few, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that was kind of the beginning of what I eventually ended up creating for myself. You talked about my anti-framework. I started to realize that when I was following a lot of the advice that was given in business books and YouTube videos and just what I could read in Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine, when I was trying to follow that advice, I often found it wasn't working for me. And I had to find a different way. I maybe what I wanted was just so different than what other people wanted. Yes, I wanted a successful business, but I didn't want it at the cost of my health. I didn't want it at the cost of my marriage. I didn't want it at the cost of my relationship with my kids. And I didn't want it at the cost of my spiritual relationship with God. And so I had to figure out, how can I build a business in a way where maybe counterintuitively, but it deepens my relationship with God. It strengthens my marriage. When I'm on that business trip negotiating a big contract in Chicago, that somehow this is improving family culture. That's what I had to figure out. And so I developed, it's called the Vital Framework, and I developed an operating system within that allowed me to almost systematically stay in this lane of showing up powerfully, being confident, getting results and outcomes, adding real value to people, and doing it in a way where it aligns me and my partners, attracts my ideal customers and clients. And it's not me doing it at the expense or sacrifice of other things that are also important to me.
Love that. Guys, if you're not taking notes, like, I call it lifestyle design. And, she comes from a design background. So it's like this concept of like, you guys get to design how this looks. Like, I just got off a yacht trip with 38 amazing individuals where I call it the Taggart bucket list mastermind, where we pick cool trips and people pay to go on this bucket list trip with me. And it's like, wait a minute, I get to travel to the bucket list destinations of my choice and get paid to do so and have a vacation with cool people that I enjoyed being with. Like, it's like, what? And some people are like, wait a minute, like, that's what you do? I'm like, yeah, like,
yeah, people will say, you're so lucky. Like it just, oops, accidentally happened.
Yeah, no, I didn't, like, I had to draw this up. I was like, okay, what if there's a way? Yeah. I said, and people are like, that'll never happen. I was like, no, like, I'm going to design this and I'm going to choose to work towards that. And now every bucket list trip we've done, which has probably been like 6 or 7, they've been epic. You know what I mean? Like, epic, global, amazing trips that people walk out of there going, that was the best trip of my life, me included. And I think too many of us, and I said, how do I bring work and pleasure and fun together to where I don't know if I'm on a work trip or if I'm on a fun trip? People are like, are you on vacation? I was like, kind of. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I think it is. Like, it sure feels like it, but I guess I'm getting paid. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like what I designed though. I was like, I don't want to know the distinction between if I'm working or playing. And I want to be able to do this with people I care about and my wife. And, so I think that'd be a simple example for somebody that, and then you're like, well, how does it apply in knocking doors? Or how does it apply in my business? I'm like, guys, like, how do you bring your family into it? Or how do you bring your partner into it? Or how do you bring fun into it? Or how do you bring, like, today I went golfing as a business meeting instead of on a Zoom meeting because I like to golf. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. So little things like that. So here's a question. So you run a successful podcast. If you guys are, looking at another podcast to check out what's working now. And obviously you've interviewed, how many episodes have you done? You've interviewed a lot of people. Like,
I'm almost to 150.
Yeah. Like, I think
but I actually started the show in 2018 and it was a Facebook live show for 2+ years. So there's probably at least 300 if you count that.
So it's like you've interviewed hundreds of people. You've seen so many different stories. You've coached a lot of different people. And I love the concept of what's working now. And, it's interesting is your husband kind of played as your guide. It sounded like even in the stories you've told me, he's just like, hey, what if you thought of this? And how do you have this mentality? Like, which is kind of cool. Like, it sounds like he's been a really supportive role in this. But when you've interviewed all these people and you've kind of been able to take a third party perspective into different businesses, what are some key things that you're noticing that have helped you compile this framework that entrepreneurs are failing at and solved by maybe some common trends?
The first one that immediately is coming to mind, I see this with every man in particular that I work with. It's kind of the nice guy syndrome. In an effort to, keep the peace and be nice, we end up being complicit in a lie. And if you're not standing in the truth, then you're in a delusion and you're trying to solve problems, grow your business, align your team, but you've got like circus funhouse mirror glasses on. It's just like you're not seeing reality for what it is. And the reason people do that is they care about the people in their life. They care about their spouse. They care about their team members. But what they're not considering is there's actually what I would call an option 3, where you can maintain that love, that care, that attention for people and be honest. But we don't see it in books. We don't see it in movies. And it's usually one or the other. Either like put a smile on your face and just let it go and move on and pretend like that didn't happen, or be a jerk and point the finger at somebody and, speak up. And the truth is there's an option 3. And option 3 is, I do love you. I do care about you. And this piece is not working, or this isn't true. One example is, somebody who I was talking to recently. He's got a sales team and a business partner, and he's got a marketing agency. And he told me point blank that the next move that would grow their business significantly is to replace him in the sales role and actually bring on a full-time dedicated salesperson. I said, well, what's stopping you from doing that? It was like, well, my business partner doesn't totally agree and he pushes back, and I see his point. And so I just keep letting it go. What's sad is there's something in him, and I would say it's not logical. It's maybe more intuitive and gut-based, but something in him knows that replacing him in this sales role and bringing on somebody who's even better at it is kind of the key to unlocking this plateau they keep hitting. But because he couldn't logically communicate that to his partner, and he wanted to, keep the peace and not just be a jerk and say, well, you just need to listen to me, he wasn't moving forward. But when you understand that there's a way to kind of bring both ends of the spectrum together and accomplish your goals and objectives and their goals and objectives, if you can understand how to do that, then you align yourself with the truth, you stop getting trapped in the nice guy syndrome, and you move forward from that place, which when you're aligned with truth, you're in integrity, you're standing on solid ground, and people respect you. Like, I'm helping a client right now who's been really frustrated in his business partnership, and he really admires and respects the people that he's working with. And so he just kept shoving it down. His anger, his frustration, his resentment, just kept shoving it down. And we've only had like a couple coaching sessions so far, and he's starting to speak up in a new way. And that's key, in the vital way. He's speaking up in the vital way. And what's happening as a result is people are thanking him for being honest. They're thanking him for pointing out the errors in their thinking. And they're like leaning in. They're even saying things like, what are you doing? Like, something's changing, and it's really cool. And it's because he's having the courage to step out of the nice guy syndrome and tell the truth.
Love that.
One of the core things. Another thing.
She's speaking. Hold on. You're just speaking to my soul, and it's sad, but divine.
Good.
And you, yeah, like I'm such a happy. Like, my parents. Here's the debunk, right? You said the third option. I love that, but it's like my mom always said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. Well, subjective nice, right? Like is it nice to not say anything? Is it now let them just keep failing or suppress? Is it nice to suppress your truths now? Like, and so I like how you've put this into a simple, there is a third option. I've never heard that. Like, it's like, just don't say it. Like, I shut my mouth way too much. And I mean, candidly, even in the sales meeting I just ran, it was like, I watched a sales rep in the corner, just kind of like, cowering. And I'm like, bro, like, sit up, be a man. Like, oh, like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, but I don't want to say anything, but it's like, I get afraid to just be, no, I didn't. Like, I get afraid because I'm like, I don't want to hurt your feelings because you're an emotional.
Tell me what you were afraid of. What were you afraid of?
Because every time I seem to give him feedback, he whines and says, oh, you don't like me and you're going to want to fire me and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't want to set you down some like depressive life state. It's sad to see your attitude right here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but he's taking it so personal every time I give him feedback that I'm just like, oh.
You open to something?
Yeah, this is where we get Sam coached. Yeah. That's yes.
Okay. It's human nature when someone pushes on you, it is human nature to preserve self and push back. It doesn't matter what you're saying. It doesn't matter how much evidence and proof that you have. When you push on somebody, they will naturally push back. The defensive tendencies in our need to survive outweigh the truth of what you're saying. There is a way out of that, though. And it's about understanding and accessing his internal wants and desires and leading with that. I was just coaching somebody on this. So you first need to know who you're talking to, and you need to know what he wants. Then you need to understand what is that point on the horizon where what Sam wants and what your sales guy wants converge. With that point on the horizon where you align, by the way, that's the key. Can you then approach him and by leading with the point on the horizon that he already wants and he already cares about and reminding him about that, can you lead the conversation with that? What happens when you do that is people's walls come down and they don't push against you anymore.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you've told me you want to sell more. You've told me you want to lose weight. You've told me you want to keep this job and want to stay working here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that you, sit up and start acting like it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That helps. Whoa, breakthrough!
Yes.
Because how many sales leaders deal with the same thing? How many times are you sitting there just like, how do I say that they haven't, this is good. Because I deal with this.
You can have a moment of truth, Sam, because he said that once before, but clearly he's forgetting that. So not only do you remind him of it, but you give him a chance to choose it again and say, did you mean it when you told me that you wanted to lose weight? Did you mean it when you told me you wanted to get your butt off the couch? Did you mean it when you told me you wanted to be a high performer? If he says yes, then you now have permission to say, if you mean that, I'm going to share something with you. It's going to be uncomfortable. Please know it comes from love. And it's because I care about you hitting those goals.
Is there... And this is where I struggle too, because I'm most of the time in public meetings where, there's always that balance of like, how often do you do it via, let me take you aside one-on-one versus I'm in front of 10 people and just call it out. And is there when you do it your way, when you just said, hey, find the synergy or the point of congruency, can you do that now in a public setting?
It depends. You need to know yourself. If you're doing it as a way of performance and posturing to everybody else in the room, it won't be effective. They will feel that and they will know that that's the intention. And so it becomes toxic. It's like dysfunctional. It's a performance.
Yeah, because I think that's where I run into it.
Yeah, so you have to check in with yourself a lot. If your intention, like go back to those sales conversations that we were talking about when I had with people, if your intention is about self, you can't help somebody. So if your intention is about posturing and peacocking in front of everybody and being seen a certain way, it won't be effective. And everyone in the room will feel it and it won't land. If your intention actually can be about, I care about you and you told me you wanted these things and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that that happens. If that is the focus and that is the intention, you can powerfully share it in a way where it lands with him and it lands with everybody in the room. But if you're posturing, it's not good. And you just have to be honest with yourself and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm definitely being tempted by the posturing thing right now. So I'm going to hang on to that and we're going to have a side conversation later. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
No, I think my fear, because like, and that's where I think a lot of times people get afraid to speak their truth is it's what's the intention behind their truth. And I found, when I do training, I can call people out and I can do it authentically. And I've done a really good job in a public speaking or coaching environment. I struggle when I have the long-term relationship consequences sometimes of people that I'm closest to. And maybe you run into that on the nice guy, because like I can be for a day a coach and put that hat on, because I know I'm probably not going to see him next week and they only hired me for the day, right? Like, so it's like I'm just going to authentically say everything that I need to say right now because this is the only time I would say it, and I won't hold back. It's when, oh shoot, I got to talk to you again the next day and the next day and the next day. And there is subsequent consequences in my own mind that I'm making up. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I now am afraid of now confronting you tomorrow because of how I potentially made you feel. And now I'm assuming the feelings, and you see what I'm getting at? Like, I'm now going through like, oh shit, what are my subsequent consequences?
You have to keep going with that. Not just how you're going to make them feel, but then how they're going to view you because of how you.
Yeah. How are they going to view me? So that self-preservation, are they going to see me as, are they not going to like me as much? Are they going to now cower from me? Are they going to, all those things. Yeah. They're going to now gossip. Yeah. Quit, whatever. Right. So is that just me self-preservation? Is that me the nice guy again?
Yeah, it is.
Damn it. See, guys, like I said, I love it. I love it. You just watched Katie just smack me in the face, and I'm willing to get it just because I love coaching. I invest heavily in training, and I get a free session on a podcast. F&A, guys, like what a good opportunistic I am. So take that. No, guys, if you're listening, obviously Katie knows her stuff, and anybody that's been around the block, like she has, in the settings that she has and the stakes that she's had, can speak from experience. I think that's the difference between somebody that read it in a textbook, somebody that's probably been in the same damn situation that I have, you know what I mean? Like, and anybody that is dealing with, what I like about you, if you've taken a holistic approach of, like you said, it was more of an internal problem than a tactical, like, hey, here's the lines to use in this coaching scenario. It's like, hold on, check in. Are you self-preserving or are you posturing? Is there a third option? Like right then and there, you don't need to tell me what to say. It's like, boom, I'm smart enough to now know how to apply what you just trained on. Like I can now go take this and do something with it. And I hope anybody listening on this freaking call is sitting there going, oh, I do that too. Or, oh, I see what they're getting at. And if you're not, and this is over your head, congratulations, go rewatch it and re-listen to it. Cause I think there's a lot of lessons in the details of what we just did.
Yeah.
And so to,
and we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Like I wish we had,
we're
I'm
just
sitting here going,
barely scratching the surface.
I know where I'm going right now. So I go right back into some training. So I'm excited. You're going to watch I'm training before this, stop, break, podcast, go back into training because we got a bunch of new hires. And you're going to watch this put right into action same day. And I think that's the part where people don't realize coaching. I don't think people realize just even a simple conversation like that can go so far. And it's not it's not like you're paying for time. It's not that you're paying for the results that simple advice, simple shifts in frameworks, simple belief changes, simple little like, try this, can go a long way. And anybody that's afraid of coaching or afraid of reaching out to Katie or reaching out to us or whoever, right? Like, and just saying, I probably could use some third-party perspective. That's just your own ego and fear. Like, I'm sitting there going, well, you're an idiot. So where can they get a hold of you? Like, where can they connect with you if they're interested in coaching or support or learn more about you?
I mean, if you want to look at the results that just a few of my clients have gotten, go to now.katierichardsson.com/case study. That's like really long, but that's what it is nonetheless. You can go to my Instagram and click on my profile and it will say case studies and you can click that button. But like I actually help people who are in the solar and HVAC space. I have clients who have been knocking doors for 10 plus years. I personally have sales experience for 17 plus years. I had a man who, I can't remember kind of what he was a consultant for Fortune 50 companies. And he and I had a conversation. I didn't know who I was talking to in the beginning, but in the end, he said, "You're one of the best salespeople I've ever talked to." And I like, Sam, I didn't go through sales trainings. I learned this through the design thinking and then ultimately the framework that I've created. And it's not only does it help me create incredible products and solutions for people, but my clients use this in negotiations, in, attracting their ideal customer and client and creating alignment with their team. Like it's a framework that then becomes kind of the framework for any problem that you need to solve. And we talked about you now, because of what you've learned in this conversation, you can now go apply it. And that's my whole goal and objective. I don't want to be the hero of your story. I want you to be the hero of your story. But is there something that I can show you that then empowers you? It's almost like, where'd they go? It's like you're looking through a totally new lens all of a sudden, and we flip that switch. And you now have the clarity on, oh, now I see where I was getting in the way. I see how I was contributing to that. And all I have to do is this thing over here. And suddenly the path forward becomes really clear. That's my goal and objective, is to really empower people in their business and life to get ultimately what they want. And if you have the right tools, you can do it. And I help people through one-on-one coaching. I also have programs that are maybe more accessible, just depending on what level you're at.
Love that. Love that. Guys, first off, appreciate those listening still and listen to the whole episode. And two, appreciate you, taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on here. And, I'm excited to, get the feedback from everybody on this episode. It was awesome. And,
Me too.
No, but thank you. No, appreciate you. And I guess if you could leave us with one, in a 30, 60 second last tip, I was asked like the one piece of advice you'd give, a business owner in 60 seconds, like what would you give them?
When we're trying to solve problems, we look external. And if you keep doing it that way, you'll indefinitely be chasing after something that continues to be elusive. So if you want to understand the greatest lever that you can pull in your life, it's about building your business, your teams, your life from the inside out. And that's why I focus on that. It's you will get the greatest ROI when you learn how to do that. So stop looking externally and start looking internal. It's terrifying, scary. But it is the greatest catalyst to growth.
So good. So good. Well, appreciate you, Katie. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.